to make sure you get the emails about this, you can go to ralphhavens.com/true healing, ralphhavens.com/true healing, and leave your email in there, and we'll be able to connect with you and let you know what's going on. Okay, so let me get the share link here and put this in the email for us. Super excited. We'll see how this goes. I don't know how today's going to go because I reached out to some people and to see if this is what we're going to do, a special healing thing as part of our Miracles, Magic, and Coffee with Dr. Tom. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'm really interested to see what Dr. Tom Giammatteo thinks about all this, and just super excited about this. So hang out for just a moment. You should be getting an email, or look in your email if you're on our special list for this show. Again, you can go to ralphhavens.com/true healing and find all of our ways to connect with us. Okay, so that looks like it's working. And let me just triple check that. And it is, there we are. Okay, so you can comment in the comments for YouTube and let me know what you're dealing with, what's going on, what you'd like to shift or change or transform or heal or manifest, create. Let me just give you this link here. That should work there. Okay, so we're waiting for Dr. Tom, and I'll probably tell this story again when he gets on. So this is what inspired me today. I was every day I do a healing session. Get up about 5:30 in the morning here in Bellingham, Washington, and sit in silence basically, and see what the universe has for me, what God has for me, and do a little reading, and then do a very special way that I go to. It's an ancient enlightenment technique, and you can find it on our site, ralphhavens.com/true healing, and grab it for free. But I do a special way to go in and clear stuff, mental, emotional, spiritual stuff that's in the way of our healing. And then I tune into all of my one-on-one clients. I take 9 clients at a time, one-on-one. And so I tune into them, tune into the people that are in our groups, and anybody that watches our videos and stuff, and then sit in silence and kind of hang out. And what came to me was something really cool, because I don't know if this is true, but I heard it was true back when I was taking a lot of integrated manual therapy classes from Dr. Tom and the late Sharon Giammatteo, his wife, and a whole crew of people from around the world. We'd go for 9 days straight every summer, and for another like 5 or 6 days straight every winter. and I heard that another healer, Richard Bartlett, the developer of Matrix Energetics, was going to be at some point possibly part of summer school. It never happened, but I was always like thinking about it, and or I've been hearing about it. And then I ended up taking Matrix Energetics from Richard Bartlett, and both of those methods, those things changed my life. There's been a few key things. I tend to find the people that are really, really valuable for me at the time, my teachers. And then when I find them, I go with it for a while, like integrated manual therapy, 10 years, 110 classes, Matrix Energetics, like since 2009 and still going on, 35 or more classes. And then I found another healing technique method. It's called Instant Miracle. It's also got the name Peace Process to another part of it, a letting go process, a surrendering process, living the question process. There's like a way to play with this even more direct, even faster, even quicker. And so years ago, I was taking a study group from Hector Garcia. He's a chiropractor in San Diego. He's amazing. He's amazing. Amazing healing work. And he said, anybody else have anybody to consider? You know, there was about 20 of us there. Really unique opportunity to be in a class that small with Hector Garcia. And so I said, well, I've got this client, you know, she's like 12 years old and she's got this problem with her eye. She's legally blind, and had a condition where she really didn't have much of an eye, like a remnant of an eye. She had an artificial eye over it, and the other eye wasn't doing very well, and she had seizures and all sorts of stuff. And he said, okay, well, let's take a look. And so he spent the next 10, 15 minutes or so noticing what he was noticing and describing it, and basically doing an energy medicine session. His form is called Garcia Energetics, and he was doing that, and it felt really good, really good. And so the next time I saw my client, the little girl, the next week, I told her about it. She goes, "Oh my God, that's why that happened." Because right about that time, she was noticing all sorts of sensations in and around her eye, and all sorts of stuff. And I was working with her, my friend and colleague who worked with us 2 weeks every 3 months, Kim Burnham, director of Integrative Manual Therapy's cranial and neurodegenerative program for a while. She was working with her, and she ended up going from where she could not read text this big. I actually have one of the newsletters somewhere here, but it's about text that was about this big. And then she got to where she could read her text messages on her phone. And this occurred over about a 2-week period with some sessions. And so it was like, cool, we got to work on her at a distance with Hector Garcia. We didn't ask her for permission, but energetically you can ask for permission. And she had a noticeable change, and then more of what we did helped her. And so, so, you know, when I first met Sharon G. Mateo, it was really cool because what really intrigued me in the beginning was her and Tom and Sharon's daughter Ayelet, all practitioners that were teaching the very first IMT class that I took in San Diego, kind of like today. It was raining, and I had my therapist there, a couple of therapists that worked for me, and so one thing that intrigued me was that they could look at me, look at anybody in the room from a distance, and pick out what was going on, where the problems were. And I thought that was just so cool. And then we would do the techniques that they recommended. You know, there'd be a set of like 20 techniques, and they would say, do number 5 and 7 on you, and test before and after. And sure enough, our range of motion was better. We felt better. Everything was better. And so, so that really sold me on it. And right away, then I said, hey, you guys got to come into my clinic and teach this stuff. And about 3, 4, 5 times a year over the next 10 years, someone from their team would come and teach in my clinic. And then about 10 times a year, 10, 12, 13, 14 times a year, I would be somewhere on a plane in Canada or the United States taking these classes, because I really wanted to learn how to do that. And through osmosis and training, we got to where we could see things at a distance. So if somebody calls me, they could say, hey, I've got so-and-so on the phone, on the table, what's going on? And say, oh, this is what's going on. And it's how I started doing distance healing work, helping people heal even if they weren't in the same place with me. And so, and my family calls me and says, hey, so-and-so is in the hospital, or so-and-so is having this problem, or can you check in on this person? And then I'll check in and do a session. So what I found from Sharon and the IMT work was that you could see things at a distance, and then you could start to like work on it with your hands if somebody was in person with the person. What I saw from Richard Bartlett was you could see things at a distance, and you could also, and Hector Garcia, you could see things and have an effect on somebody. Something could happen, some goodness could shift for them. You know, good things come into their life, even though you weren't in the same room. And then with Hector, I saw that even if the other person didn't know you were working on them, like the little girl, they could have a shift. It's kind of like prayer, except it's got a certain way of doing it. So, which probably prayer does too. So let me, still don't see Tom. I hope he got on. Jen didn't send him a message. She had to rush out of here. And if she doesn't, then I'm going to do this on our own, and we'll see what we do. Because what I thought with Tom was, you know, when Jen was pregnant with Baden, this was back in he's 3. So that's 2017, May 18th, 2017. And before that, Tom and I would talk at least once a week. And part of the talk, he would just say, hey, how's Jen doing? And I'll say, well, she's got this going on. And he would go, okay, well, here's what's going on. And I would write down what he noticed. Sometimes it's good, especially with family, to have other eyes on on your family member instead of just you doing all the work, right? It's like, it's nice to have other eyes. And so he would say, here's where the bone bruise is, here's where the disruption in an artery is, here's where the disruption in a vein is, here's what's going on in the liver, here's what's going on in this part of the body, here's what's going on in this bone. And then I had techniques. So I would do the actual hands-on techniques with Jen. Now, if she was at a distance, I would have had to do it, at a distance, kind of like I did with her dad when he was living with us for 100 days or so, and we worked on him in person every day, almost every day. But then when he went back to Indiana, I continued to work on him over the airwaves. But with Jen, I got to work on her in person, and she could actually bend all the way to the floor the day that she gave birth to Baden, with her knees straight and her bottom not pushing backwards, just straight up and bending straight over and touching the ground like that. And she felt great. And the birth was just like, it was like we were on a date. I mean, we were just walking around Bellingham, and then it was the midwives were like, you should probably come in. And they came in and they gave her some herbs, and then it started the whole process. And then a few hours later, there was Baden. And then another hour later, we were back home, and it was amazing. So I thought today it would have been kind of cool. I don't know if Tom's going to get on. Let me see if I got an email from him. And, but we'll do it in a different way then. I thought today it'd be cool for Tom to take somebody. Yeah, I don't see him on. Jen didn't send a message to him. So that's too bad. But we get, so it goes, as Kurt Vonnegut says, And so, so it goes. I thought, you know what, I reached out to somebody that kind of came into my awareness. I thought, hey, can we use you as a surrogate? Can we do a distance healing session? And she didn't email me back, so she probably didn't get the email. And I thought, well, we could do it with Jen. And but I think we're going to do it a little bit differently. So you guys can try it out and see what you think. And yeah, one way to think about it is like, just imagine that you were the one that was picked to be the surrogate. And then you can see what happens and email me, and go to ralphhavens.com/true healing, and then get your email in there through any of the links that are in there. And then send me an email and let me know if you notice anything, what you notice from the chair you're sitting in. Does that sound good? Let me see if anybody's commenting on YouTube. Okay. I didn't really PR this very much, so there maybe will be some more people watching later as well on YouTube. Okay, so this is really special, especially if you're watching live. So just think about what you would like to create, your desire. If something's been bugging you, some health problem or some other kind of condition, or you just want to create something in your life. It's like, golly, how come I don't have that? Wouldn't it be cool to have this? That might be a better way to ask. Wouldn't it be cool to have this? If I could ask for anything, it would be this. And then we're going to do something. I've got another little secret that I'm going to tell you about. For some reason, today's all about letting some of this, unlocking the secrets. So one thing that I learned from Richard Bartlett from Matrix Energetics was that you could set things up. You could do the session ahead of time. And he's got a story about that. But I've got my own story about that. I was, that same time when Kim Burnham was in our office and she was working, I had a client that was coming, and she was a new client. I guess I had seen her years before, but I didn't remember her. And she was filling out her paperwork. So she was in the waiting room and she was late. So I was sitting there with nothing to do, and I'm sitting next to Kim Burnham. And Kim worked on a client, and Kim said, well, you can always go and set the space up so it's already done. And I was like, oh yeah, they showed us how to do that. And so it's cool. I see an airplane flying in a funny way out there, a little airplane. And so I went in the room and set the space up like that. And when the client came in, she told me of all these problems. Her name is Wanda, and you can actually go to our testimonial page and take a look at all that, ralphhavens.com/true healing. And Wanda has a couple of those posts in there. But when I first saw her, she had all these problems: environmental sensitivities, chemical sensitivities, chronic pain. She was on disability, all sorts of anxiety and depression and stuff. And I did what's called Matrix Energetics 2.0. And I got my indicator that this is already done. This is done within a few seconds. And she didn't know what I was doing. I was just like, we were both standing up and I had my hands around her. And she asked me what I was doing. She turned her head, she's like, what are you doing? And because she could feel something. And I don't remember what I said, something about energy probably. And she spent the rest of the hour rolling around on the floor. And she thought she was coming to a physical therapy clinic. So I was like, wow, this is amazing. So I thought I better at least look like I'm, doing something because she's coming in here as a client. So I kind of followed her around, but the thing was already done. I had actually set it up so it was already done ahead of time. And then her success story was incredible. So you can go read about it and see that. But I learned something that day to set things up ahead of time, to do it ahead of time. And that's how I live my life. So you can think about how to do that. And if you interact with me more and more, you get some of the details of how you can do this. Now, right now, what you can do is just notice how you feel. And then after this seeming like me just rambling on kind of session, you could notice what you notice what's different, see if something's different for you. So I'm going to go ahead and set this up. So we're going to take all of this stuff, and it's already done, but the story of that client, story of Jen, story of Kim Burnham and Hector and Richard, my Qigong teachers, Yogananda, all of these teachers. Yeah, all the stuff you truly desire, any awakening, gentleness, kindness, peace, all the stories about Sharon, all the stories about that peace process and the instant miracle. Done, 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 done. And let's go outside and play. So you can notice what you notice and let me know. And Tom is on. Perfect timing. Oh my goodness, this is going to be cool. Let's see what Tom has in store for us.
Hi, Ralph.
Hey, Tom. Man, we've been playing in some cool stuff right now.
Okay.
So I was telling lots of stories about Sharon and you and IMT and when I first met you guys, and then matrix energetics and the next level of stuff that I started using, and all these different teachers and healers and people. Let me see if I can.
Yeah. Can you see me, or I don't have a camera?
If I can ask to start video, promote to panelists, maybe that'll do it. And so I kind of I didn't get a message back from that one client I wanted to talk to, ask to start video, and to get her permission. But I was I wanted to kind of check in. There was something that happened. Somebody told me about this, and I don't even know if it's actually a true story. But I did a what if today, and the what if was like, let me make you, there we go. Was I was taking a lot of IMT classes, and then I was just about to take Matrix Energetics from Richard Bartlett, and I heard, I don't even know who told me, and it's probably, I don't know if it's true or not, that there was a chance that maybe he was going to speak at summer school one year or do something, but that was right when there was lots of transition in all sorts of ways, and so I was kind of interested in, this is some of the stories that I told, was that from Sharon and you and that whole IMT approach, through osmosis and training and just being around you guys, we could see things at a distance. And like you did with Jen when she was pregnant with Baden, you told me, here's where the bone bruise is, here's where the disruption is, here's how where this is, and then I would work on her. And then I was telling about Hector Garcia, another chiropractor, so many great chiropractors. And I was in a study group with him in San Diego years ago, and he said, anybody else have a tissue issue? He called it tissue issue or relationship or abandonment. Those are like 3 categories to look at. And I said, well, I've got this little girl, and she's blind, but she's got a remnant of an eye, and she's got a prosthetic, and can you work on her? So he did. And then the next week I was seeing her, and I told her what we did, and she said, oh, wow, well, this is what happened then, because she felt all these changes, even though she didn't know he was working on her, and she didn't, Kim Burnham was at the time working with me there. And so Kim worked on her and I worked on her, and she went from being unable to read really big text to where she could read text messages on her phone. And so there was, Sharon and you guys, you see stuff at a distance, and Richard does crazy stuff and healing stuff at a distance, and that's part of my world now. And then Hector was able to affect a change at a distance, and so I thought, I thought about this months ago, and I didn't really reach out to you yet, but I thought whether we do it now or later, or you talk about it now, the idea that you can see a lot of stuff. You can see a lot of stuff. You can tell if somebody's got something going on and they call you on the phone, it's as if it's on the teleprompter. And you go, oh, okay, here's what's going on. And then, then as practitioners, we can work on that person at a really high level. But I thought, wouldn't it be cool to take somebody as a test, as a fun thing, and you see what you see for them, and then we play with this distance healing thing, and run it back to them as a remedy, kind of like call it like a conjugate wave. Like, here comes the frequency of this problem, and then we send it back as the exact opposite waveform, and like noise canceling headphones. Or another way I thought about it was like if we were both, you're in Connecticut, I'm in Bellingham, Washington. If we both access the same URL, we could come to the same movie. And but if there was another person over there somewhere in the world that had access to the code of that URL, they could switch it out and put a completely different movie in that has
Right.
like maybe they'd go from a despair movie to a romantic comedy. And so then we're in Connecticut and Bellingham, and we'd log on to that URL, and it's like, oh, this is a much better movie. And so so I just thought, those were kind of some of my ideas this morning. So any thoughts about distance healing, about how you see things at a distance, at miracles, just anything you want to talk about?
Okay. So going back to the philosophies of the Connecticut School of Integrative Manual Therapy, Sharon actually had an educational company called Dialogues in Contemporary Rehabilitation. And our mission statement there was to advance all forms of healthcare. And the second one was consciousness rehabilitation for the world, one person at a time. And our definition of consciousness has definitely changed in the last, since 1980 to now. Consciousness and chakras and esoteric planes are more common words than we've ever had before, as our realization and education has grown as a culture, as a universe. So, as the school and trying to interface with all forms of medicine and try to help them advance into getting back to intuition and getting back to the human relationship as something that can change. That's not the philosophy of regular Western medicine of today, right? It has to be evidence-based. It has to be this. It has to be that. And we're almost trying to plug a clog. We're trying to plug you into this format, and then therefore you do this. And that's going to be the demise of Western medicine in the process. That, like even in hospitals, they don't want the same nurse to come back 3 days in a row and treat the same person because they'll get fatigue. And I really feel like,
Wow.
Yeah, right. They're just trying to, okay, you have diabetes, you have a heart attack, this is the things we do, and you just plug it in and plug it out. And we're not that way. So, if we take the person as a being of essence, choosing to come into this world at this time, there are many planes of things that have been talked about, but can't be proven. And they say, that's voodoo medicine, that's bad medicine. So, these things can be limiting us in those areas. I really my purpose in this life is to be getting people back in their bodies. So I like the touch component of it, but we all have the awareness that we can do some distance healing too. They've done it for thousands of years when the priest gets up in the church and says, pray for so-and-so.
Mm-hmm.
That energy has been, changing the world and those things. So to have that be a one form of healing is amazing, and just prayer circles and even in Tibet in Ayurvedic medicine, when they put up those little flags, there's a prayer on it. They hope to change world peace and consciousness. So there's some amazing things that quote unquote distance healing can be done for.
One thing that attracted me to all the methods I've studied is they all, well, they don't, anyway, I love going through the body. Like, it's really good to go through the body, with exercise, with hands-on touch. There's something really good about the body feeling very good.
Yeah. And the only comments I like to make before we even start a session like that, Ralph, is I try to stay as neutral as possible and not have an agenda. When we get invested in a tool or sell it, then everything, like I tell students, if they find, even if they're doing the structural stuff, if they find if they have 5 people in a day and everybody has right knee problems, maybe it's not a projection of self, and being able to be aware enough that could be something that is a possibility.
I talked about that. I said, I can do stuff to help people. And yet when Jen was pregnant, it was so good to have your eyes on Jen, because, I'm less neutral to tell the truth about Jen.
Yeah, and to tell a story, my mother's 90th birthday is on Monday, and I've been writing these newsletters on astrological findings and all these things. And so we had summer solstice, and when we say integrate any of the solstices or any of the equinoxes, there's a structural shift in the earth and we can lose our balance more. So what happens on Saturday at 3 o'clock before 5 o'clock, the solstice hits, my mother trips and hurts her foot. So, and she's old, elderly, and she thinks she hurt it. So we actually had to go get x-rays, and she has a fractured foot. So, and we tried the integrated manual therapy stuff, but we needed a cast and we needed all those pieces at the same time. So
wow, cool. I mean, not cool that she hurt, but who knows what wonderfulness is happening just because we're thinking and talking about this, and she's in the field with us.
Yeah. So so if you open yourself up and hear that inner tuition and start to trust it, and you can envision the person, it is sometimes you're able to have an intuition on what you can get these long distance healing practices. So even people are saying, well, pray for so and so's heart, and you're doing that in the essence of a church, you're doing a long distance healing piece at the same time. So it takes on many different facets, right? And what I would like to say is that we have to take care of our own wounded self first and make sure that we're coming from a good place.
I was just going to ask you about that. Like, what do you do for yourself? And you stay neutral, and IMT, we always work on ourselves. That's really important, to be clear. And how do you with all your stuff, what do you do to keep your own keep clearing, getting yourself in a better spot?
Well, I never trust myself on my own self.
Even you.
How's that?
That's cool.
And there's always a lot of reflection. And so every day I wake up and say, thank God and the universe for allowing me to be in this position to interact with a lot of people in their lives, right? And I've studied enough, you've seen my degree list, that I use that intuition to help meld it together to help get people better on that piece.
I have so many different models. One thing I liked about IMT was, because I had been taking craniosacral and mechanical link and then visual manipulation, and I had the structural integration stuff from Jeffrey, what was his name? The guy who lives in Colorado now, Institute of Physical Art, and all of this Feldenkrais and stuff. And And so it was like, when I saw a client, I was like, which model am I looking through this with? But with IMT, it was nice to have an overall, well, let's see what's going on first, and then plan.
And then, so for my own personal, I have a group of practitioners that I have, trained, and I ask them to take off their goggles of me being a mentor and let's get to it. And they, I step aside, and so I trade with a few professionals here, for that piece. And I also have a psychotherapist I use.
Oh,
Just
that's awesome.
Yeah. So I don't want to, I do meditation to hear what I need to hear on some pieces, but I also know that maybe I should get out and let other people look from the outside in.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of interesting because I had something happen. What was it? Funny things. I guess it might have been around a solstice or something. A mountain biker ran right into me on the trail. Like it wasn't as bad as it could have been, but it was like, oh man. And the next day, I tripped over Ben's bike and the same shoulder, arm, all that stuff. And I was like, oh my God. And then I start to go through my mind, like, am I having a heart attack? Because I'm feeling all sorts of stuff. I thought, man, if I was in Connecticut, I'd be on Tom's table every week.
Yeah.
Even though I can talk to you in person and do stuff energetically. Isn't that funny?
Yep. So I mean, I try to get body work 3 or 4 times a month if I can, and COVID's been a little hard. Yeah, it's better to let somebody else look in, because sometimes we get trapped in our own stuff sometimes with that piece.
Yeah, I think it's so important to have your team, and some can be energetic people and coaches, and some can be a practice like maybe qigong or yoga or tai chi or whatever, and then some can be somebody you see. I mean, when I was in San Diego, I had the Center IMT in LA work on me every 6 weeks. I would go for 4 hours of treatment, and so, yeah.
And that's where Western medicine says, okay, let's just check your blood pressure and wait until it gets broken. We're in, okay, let's be a high performance car and get a tune up and change your oil once in a while.
Yeah.
So that could be either, a spiritual discussion with somebody or getting some body work sometimes. And the longevity of that seems to be longer for people who do get those in. If I'm, like I said, I've never had to take an aspirin or a Tylenol in the last year and a half. And some people have to buy a new bottle every other week. Right?
Yeah.
So what is our normal condition of health, and when do we know that we maximize that piece? And it's trying to train somebody into saying, take care of yourself along the way, in that whole concept.
Yeah. And then using your intuition would be so important, because you could try all sorts of different things. Like there's some people that get treatment every week, but they haven't, a year goes by and they haven't improved a condition that's really serious for them. So it's important to find your right group.
Yeah. So you should, I would say that even with psychotherapy and, even body works, that you should see at least a progression or a maintenance. And, we still hold true here. I have a form that somebody hits their 10th visit with me, and that could be over 3 months, a year, or whatever, and say, how have you improved? Do you see improvement? What are your new goals? And if they can't answer those 2 questions, then, or we're, I have low back pain, but if I don't come from therapy, it hurts me for 8 hours. And then when I come for therapy, it stays at 6 hours. That's
something.
That's something. So I sometimes have people take a break and say, okay, go 2 months without us and see what falls back and what comes forward, especially with the client that is the client themselves. And if we have a child, the person paying for the child or paying for the other person also has to fill out one of those forms that says, I see improvement, so that we're all on the same team, right?
All on the same team, yeah.
And to make it a community-based process at the same time. And sorry, with this COVID piece, my fear was my mother has a broken foot and I don't have an x-ray machine in my office. So how am I going to get an x-ray on Saturday evening at 4 o'clock? So I luckily called we have a very small town hospital with an emergency room in it. And I called up and said, can I stay with my mother? I don't want to drop her off at the door. And they said, yeah, now they've dropped some of the releases. So I got to come in
Oh,
with her
that's so good.
time. And they were very kind and relaxed to that piece, because previous to this in the COVID, people would have to leave somebody at the door and never see them again. And those.
That actually has happened a lot. Yeah, that's really sad what's happening to the older people. A lot of them dying alone.
Yeah. So to be able to use your intuition is just a skill set that we've both have practiced, and we've had mentors show us that ability to sit in neutrality and try to listen from an instance and being there. And it's not uncommon to on the alternative medicine world to be able to bring in your other instincts, be in to have that. And what I say in the classes now, that integrative manual therapy is a full contact sport of healing. We touch them, we watch them, we move them. And from the moment you walk into my door or I hear you on the telephone, I'm listening to everything from how fast they respond to a question to how they, scratching their head, or how they're going to the water cooler. And then we always walk the person down the hall so we can see movement. And the students are so surprised I can almost hear when a bone is like hurt on one, because if you fix it enough and you watch them before and afterwards, it sounds different, or they thunk on one side versus the other, or their ankle clicks the right ankle clicks and the left ankle clicks. So those are all sense of being. And go back to the mother who knows something happened to their child, and they could be a mile away and they still. So I don't call those weird. I call that just listening to self-healing and the expression of life.
Yeah, I remember I was getting treatment in Connecticut once. You might have been the practitioner, but it might have been somebody else. I forgot. I know you were in there at some point, and Sharon was through an open door. She couldn't see me sitting there working on somebody else. And I hear her say something about, it's age 17 about me.
Yeah.
And that was kind of funny. And so, you can see it.
She tells a story about, remember there was this Mel Gibson movie, What Women Want, where it's a comedy sort of thing, and he falls and trips his head, and he starts to hear everybody's conversation. And, he starts to hear their secrets, so he becomes very successful for that whole piece, and he learns how to be more human by hearing all the undertones of that piece. So there are trainings like Matrix out there, and a couple other ones where you try to heighten that sensitivity. And I remember Sharon going, yeah, when I first started this, I would walk into a restaurant and I'd hear somebody think about, do they order pancakes or muffins? So it is a possibility if you just turn your ears the right way.
Yeah. And
And that's the cool thing about what we do with mapping, Ralph, is when we physically have a person that knows IMT palpate the human body and put it on a piece of paper, you get to see the story. And again, if you're too close to your son or your wife, sometimes that gets blurred. But so after I train somebody in the integrative manual therapy mapping, I'm almost there 90% in the room, and it's and seeing how that person made the picture is just like telling handwriting styles. Somebody writes in cursive, somebody writes in neat print, and somebody scribbles, but you can see the same pattern over and over again. I didn't know you participated in some of those test activities, like can we all find the same, right? We would put somebody's arm through a curtain and ask them to find, what location the problem was, and we would have like 80-90% accuracy in doing that.
Yeah, I think I was like, I forgot the exact time difference or whatever, but I was at some point in Toronto taking Cardiac 2, and Mary Jane walked by my table and looked at me and said, age 17. And I was like, oh God, I guess that was a big one. So,
Seems like that's been a big year for you. And it is just a reflection back. And many psychotherapeutics have that reflection back on that piece of, maybe we didn't have enough support in figuring out how to have those triggers in it. But
yeah, or
those are,
in another layer or whatever. It was
Yep.
all good. It was all good. Yeah, this has been awesome. And so anybody that's watching either live or replay, you can actually kind of just tune in and notice if something's different for you. If you notice it, if something were to have just changed, would you notice it? So let us know. And Tom's at info@imtwellnesscenter.com. And I'm at ralphhavens.com/true healing. And you can find us and send us a message of what you're noticing. And there's a lot of practitioners that have taken a lot of classes from Tom and from Sharon and from the whole team and all have our own flavor to all of this stuff. But Tom's amazing because he will talk to us. And if somebody's having an issue, he could put his input in too, if you want that. And so there's people all over the world that have these kind of skills, and we're out there, and you can find them at imtwellnesscenter.com and go find the directory of people, or just send Tom a message too. Send me a message, and we can probably find them. I just had somebody last week that said, anybody in Austin, Texas, and I said, yes, Judy Osborne, and so she works on my sister, and she's worked on my nephew. So yeah, there's help for us out there, and I'll just put it out there too. I'll tell Tom later about something cool that I just thought about. But yeah, anything else you want to tell people about stuff? It's been so good to have you on, and we'll just keep having you on and sharing any more healing stories, healing ways, healing ideas. But anything else you want to share?
No, I think this week is hard. And just a reminder that my mother broke her foot. My cappuccino maker or my coffee maker broke. My brother's refrigerator blew up. And we're in a reflection of Mercury retrograde. People are dropping things a lot more. So, and people are getting very frustrated. The boiling point is heightened. So hug yourself first. Try not to make a irrational decision. And I would almost wait until mid-July before we, make lifetime decisions for a little while, so we can get out of this chaotic level of stuff going.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm gonna just activate anything that would be useful for everybody here with one of Baden's toys for everybody. There we go. Yeah, and let's see what how wonderful, cool stuff happens for Tom's mom, because I have a feeling she was our surrogate. So yeah, keep us posted, Tom. So good to see you. Really good to see you.
Okay, Ralph. Have a great day.
Okay, have a really good day.
Bye.
Right, guys. So good to see Tom. So good to see everybody. So imtwellnesscenter.com and ralphhavens.com/true healing. And let's get out there and live. Let's really live. All right, you guys. Bye now.